Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Mobi. I'm Dr. Mobi, and today we have an excellent guest, Marc Valentine, and he's going to talk about his podcast and passion. Let's welcome Marc. How are you doing?
Dr. Moby, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, great. Tell me about what do you do?
So, we have a podcast which is called Disney Life Podcast,
Mhm.
and the podcast is very fun, it's very lighthearted, and it's devoted to people who are looking for information to travel. And it's somewhat of a lifestyle podcast that for families and for travelers that are looking to go to the Walt Disney World Studios over in Orlando, Florida. We offer all kinds of tips and tricks, as well as we love to offer reviews on dining, hotels, and just resources for people that want to go.
Mhm.
So a lot of our guests on the podcast are Disney photographers, Disney travel agents, individuals who have gone after the reopening, and people who can speak to the dining experience. And it's just really fun. We try to keep it very lighthearted and fun, and that's kind of the title of the podcast suggests what we're all about.
So your podcast is on travel and Disney. So that is amazing. I like actually we do a lot of travel shows too. We have great guests on podcast. So tell me about your take on Disney. I know with the COVID situation, we were talking before that there were a lot of layoffs recently. So we really encourage people to go if they can, and and kind of help the economy and the situation, with all struggling, uh, of course, remain safe. And so tell us a little bit about the changes in Disney.
Sure. Well, I want to start by saying that our family was very much on the fence.
Hmm.
That we were not the first family that wanted to go. So, there's kind of two camps right now in the Disney community. There's people who want to wait until a vaccine. There's people that don't feel safe with all the measures that are in place. And then there are people that went on day one. We very much, our family, we were cautious, and we tried to monitor the situation. We went 3 weeks after opening, and we have a lot of friends who are the cast members. Speaking of individuals that were laid off, we have friends that are cast members. We tried very much to monitor the situation and make a decision based upon what we saw coming out of the numbers in Florida at the time. To give you perspective as well, we were there at the beginning of August. Florida was still very much spiking at the time. So it was a very tough call and a tough decision. It wasn't an easy one for our family. So we did wind up driving. That's the first thing that I want to say. We felt a lot safer than driving as a family and driving straight through from, we live in the Northeast, so we did the 17-hour drive straight from Pennsylvania. We just felt like it was placing ourselves maybe at an increased risk by flying, and we couldn't tell what the flight would look like. So it was just something that made us feel a lot more safe and secure. But getting to the park, um, we were surprised at the amount of traffic that was in the park. Now, normally when you go to Disney World in Florida, it is their busy season. They have a lot of international travelers. The parks themselves are very packed, and the park experience was markedly changed from what we were used to. You could walk on rides. We found that there was virtually no wait for any experience whatsoever, and the parks were very empty. And I think that's, you spoke about the layoffs that Disney just yesterday laid off 28,000 employees across the American parks, not just in Orlando, but also out in California, because California has not reopened due to the restrictions of the state of California has placed on theme parks. Um, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at the layoffs that have come. They're very sad, but there really are not crowds there right now. And what's very difficult is to see the layoffs and know that if there is a place that's doing it right and they really are doing everything they can to keep their guests safe, it's Disney. I know that there's a lot of anxiety and stress around going to a theme park, but if I could offer my assessment, I felt that if there is a protocol that is being followed to keep people safe, Disney was adhering to it. They are so every guest has to wear a mask. It's not optional. The only place that you cannot wear a mask in Walt Disney World is when you are in your hotel room. If you are at poolside, And if you're at poolside and you're not social distance from other parties, they will tell you to put on a mask. And then while you are actively eating and or drinking, Disney had a loophole that some of the individuals that were going within the first few days of reopening were walking around pretending to eat. So
Hmm.
Disney clarified that you have to be stationary while eating and or drinking and socially distanced. If you're walking around with a food and or drink item and your mask is even slightly pulled down, a cast member will come up to you and remind you that they have the mask policy to please raise the mask and to maintain social distancing from other people. So the masks were the first thing that we noticed from our last trip in August. Um, there is enhanced cleaning procedures that
Hmm.
all of, there are signs all over of detailing what they've cleaned, how much they've cleaned. And even in the hotel rooms, when you arrive upon your stay, they have a list of all of the items that have been deep cleaned compared to what they would normally do. They show you the difference in that. And then just entry to the park, there are so many protocols that were normally not there. One being there's a temperature screening. If your temperature is above a certain temperature, they will pull you to the side and your entire party. Some of that they will chalk up to the heat of the Orlando sun. But if you cannot get your temperature down, then yourself and your family will be denied entry to the park. And then afterward, that's at every single location. So that's not just at park entry, it's when you go into a dining location. So
Hmm.
your temperature is constantly screened throughout the course of your stay.
Hmm.
And then of course, there's social distancing markers everywhere. When you're queued up for a line, you cannot be closer than 6 feet from the family in front and or behind. If you break that, again, a cast member will come up to you, politely remind you to please maintain social distance. And there were one or two instances where you have a little child. Our daughter is 8, and she would get a little close to the family in front, and a cast member would come up to us and remind us to please maintain social distance. Disney is super vigilant. If you even pull your mask down for a second, they will remind you that they have cooling stations where you can take off your mask. But if you are anywhere else in the park, you have to have your mask up. And then there's sanitizing stations and hand washing stations every 15 feet in the park. It's at the beginning of each ride as you get on. There's a hand sanitizer station after you get off every single ride. And then most of the rides are stopped periodically so that the cast members can sanitize each ride vehicle. As well as if you're on the ride itself, your family is the only family that's allowed on in the ride at any given time if they can't space it out. So if you're on a roller coaster, every other car is saved for a family.
So that is, I mean, that's a pretty good assessment you have described. Now, also tell me, is there an option to get tested or no?
So right now, when we left Disney, Disney was in negotiations with their Actors Equity Union. One
Hmm.
of the things the cast members wanted to see happening for their safety and security was to have the cast members be tested as regularly as they wanted. Disney has since opened up their own testing site, which is for cast members. Currently, there is no testing that there's no rapid test that if you want to go to the park that you have to be tested. And I think that that's probably why you still have a lot of individuals who are still, despite all of the safety procedures that are in place, you still have a lot of people that are very hesitant to go until there's a vaccine. But then on the flip side of things, you have the individuals in our society, and I'm not here to debate, one way or another. Um, you have the individuals who are also not going to Disney right now because of the mask policy. That there's individuals that don't want to walk those distances and be in the heat with the masks on. So, and I think that has greatly hurt, amongst other things, it's really hurt Disney's attendance right now. And it's sad for those of us who love the parks to
Hmm.
see so many people that are wary to want to go. Because on our podcast, one of our first episodes,
Hmm.
and the host that had on, she's a Disney travel agent. We talked specifically about that, and I shared my opinion on, how safe I felt, and she shared my assessment, having also had traveled. And I gave the recommendation to our listeners, which was twofold. It was one, if you feel like you would be compromised and you feel like you would have anxiety, then certainly it's not worth going because you wouldn't enjoy the trip. that if you are worried, and if that is at the forefront of your mind, that you don't feel safe, then don't go, because it's supposed to be a leisurely journey to Disney. You're not supposed to be worried the entire time about contracting COVID. But I said, if you look at what Disney is doing and you have no anxiety or fear around it, it's the safest possible. Sorry, my apologies. It's the safest possible
Mhm.
place that you could be right now. I felt safer at Walt Disney World than I do at my local Walmart or Target.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's the best time to go to Walt Disney World. And while attendance has been picking up steadily, the attendance compared to where they're normally at is it's down.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it makes for a much better experience in some regards, in my opinion. Right now, the value that you get in terms of your ability to walk on various rides and attractions is it's remarkable. Lines that you'll normally wait in excess of a half hour to 45 minutes to get on, you're on the ride in less than 5 minutes. And these are, pretty major attractions. When people think of iconic Disney rides, we walked right onto Space Mountain. We walked right into what's called Big Thunder Mountain, which is one of their big roller coasters. This is in the Magic Kingdom. And the one ride that did have a slight increase in weight was Splash Mountain, but that's because there's so many people trying to get on that attraction right now, because it's going to be rethemed soon. So they're going to be refurbishing it. So a
Mhm.
lot of people are prioritizing that. A lot of the wait times are also deceptive, where it'll say 30-minute wait, but in
Mhm.
actuality, it's perhaps a third of that. It's a 10-minute wait to get on many attractions.
Mhm. And so tell us a little bit about the restaurant situation. How is it over there right now? Are the eating places open or still closed?
So many of the restaurants are still closed. You have to go on. Disney has their own app, which is called the My Disney Experience app. So
Mhm.
patrons will go on their app and they can see what restaurants are open and which ones have been closed. So there's a lot of variety that's still available, both table service and what Disney calls quick service, which is you can walk up to a counter and order something quickly. There's still a lot of variety that you can get, but the quick service option, which is, speaking of new protocols, they have a new quick service option which is completely touchless. So you order your food inside of the app. The food is paid for inside of the app using a credit card or a Disney gift card. So there's no exchange of money. If you don't have the app, Disney will provide for a very limited experience with a teller who will
Mhm.
go and will take your money. They can't refuse your legal tender.
Yeah. So I think tell me about some of the highlights with some of the. Uh, so tell me about some of the the eating places. Are they takeout or just?
Some are takeout, but some you do have to go and sit. Disney has created a lot of space. There's limited capacity in the restaurants. Most of the restaurants that we ate at,
Mhm.
there were very few guests, which made us feel very comfortable.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's changed much since mid-August. I know that their bookings for table service have gone up, but we were never closer than 6 feet, dare I say 10, from the next party over. And then, the entire time, the wait staff had protective equipment. They had both masks and face shields, as well as gloves. And the experience felt, again, very safe. There were a lot of protocols in place. Silverware was wrapped, and you could see that it had been cleaned thoroughly, and it was wrapped in like a saran wrap. And then there were no menus.
Thank you for updating with with Disney, and that seems to be very promising. I think I would encourage everybody to definitely visit, check out Disney, and because with even COVID, we want to make sure that they're still giving fair chance. Okay, well, any final thoughts you have for our audience, Mark?
Just like you said, I would really recommend that people do the research for themselves. And if it's something that your family doesn't feel compromised, it's a great time to go. And it was what our family needed in terms of like our mental health to really feel normal again. And of course, it's changed, but
And anything else? I think you're doing fantastic job encouraging people to at least check it out,
Yeah.
and be safe. Still, we say be safe.
Yeah, and
And
if people are looking for any more information, again, our podcast is called Disney Life Podcast, and we're over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and then of course our host site right now is buzzsprout.com. So
sure.
if you have some questions or if you're looking for information, our podcast is a great place to get started.
Okay. 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 Thank you. You take care, Mark. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for
Thank
coming. Take
you.
care. Bye.